Well, hello everybody. Really good to see you. It's a nice group today. It's on Saturday morning Thai time and uh, evening time on Friday evening in the States. And I welcome you all. Uh, got 10 people today. And the first thing that we'll talk about is when someone has an unwholesome thought about their practice is not good enough. For instance, we can say, have thoughts like, uh, I feel good. And then they tell themselves in the next thought, but I don't feel good yet. Okay. The example that I would use for that is uh, you've probably seen a cloth, a washcloth, a hand towel, or a towel that if you put it in water, it doesn't receive the water immediately. That you can also have an artificial sponge. I don't think anybody uses real sponges anymore, but an artificial sponge that has dried out. If you put water on it, it will bead up. The same thing with any clothing, that if you start walking out in the rain in any clothing, the first thing that will happen with the drops is that they'll bead up and they won't go into the fabric. That's especially true if the fabric is very tight knit and polyester. If it's got natural fabric in it, it'll begin to soak up the water. So, Daniel, the first question that I have for you, are you natural or are you polyester?
Natural, as far as I know.
All right. So, that means then that you're not going to resist the water forever. That in fact, you will eventually soak it up. However, you got to keep putting the water on. You can't just put a drop on, watch it roll off, and say, oh, poor me, my meditation doesn't work. In fact, when we say, oh, poor me, my meditation doesn't work, that's exactly not meditating. That's not the practice. But in fact, much of what the practice is learning to develop the skill of learning to be satisfied with the way things are right now. So if you do have the thought, oh, well, I told myself to feel good, but I don't feel good now, the answer to that would be the next thought would be, aha, I see that, and how I feel right now is good enough. It may not be spectacular, it may not be over the moon, but how I feel right now is good enough. Start allowing how things are right now to be good enough. And when you think those thoughts and you have those ideas and you have the attitude that things are all right, you will eventually start to feel all right. But so long as you keep going back to, oh, well, I practiced and I had the attitude that I'm okay and I still don't feel okay, that is actually destroying the meditation practice right then and there. Okay? That's like a potter who has made a new pot and it's still soft from the mud. It hasn't dried in the sun yet. And so 5 minutes after he's made that pot, he destroys it because it's not firm yet. So that's what you're doing. Now, um, if you can, in fact, recognize that having made the pot, doing the job that needed to be done, which is having the wholesome thoughts, forming the mind in that clay, it will set then into feelings, but it's not going to take uh, a long time, just a short time, especially if you begin to understand that however how you feel right now is okay. Even if you feel pissed off, become okay with the fact that you're pissed off. That's okay. If you don't like being pissed off, then you're going to continue being pissed off, because now you got two things to be pissed off about. You were pissed off about, you know, Mary Jane or whatever, and now you're pissed off both at Mary Jane and being pissed off.
The two arrows, right?
Pardon?
That's like the two arrows.
Yes, exactly so. Um, so another one would be anxiety. That when you are practicing anapanasati and having thoughts of everything is okay and I feel good, and then you begin to examine the body and you feel anxiety, mostly what was the beginning student will say is, darn it, I'm trying to meditate here and I've still got this anxiety. Or if they're even more stupid, they'll say, where does this anxiety come from? Without recognizing that the anxiety is already the old habit. The anxiety is like the dryness in that sponge that won't take the water. And so if you hate the anxiety and want to get rid of it, it will in fact persist. But if you can say, okay, I'm sitting here and I recognize the anxiety. Well, I'm glad I can see that anxiety, because before I wasn't paying any attention to it. Let me take a deep breath and everything's going to be okay. It's okay that I'm uptight and I'm anxious. It's okay that I'm angry. Let me relax. The anger is optional. See, what we're doing is we're beginning to accept ourselves the way that we are. That's the only way that you'll ever become satisfied with yourself, is by accepting yourself the way that you are, rather than always looking for those things that we don't have. So if you've got anxiety and you say, I don't want to have anxiety, how can I get rid of this anxiety? You're just keeping it going. But if you can say, oh, there's that anxiety again, old friend, I've seen you before. It's okay you've come back. It's okay that I can see you. In fact, I'm really glad that I can see you, because the only way I can deal with you is if I can catch you by the tail. And now that I've caught you, I can paint you red. I can breathe you in and out. I can slide you up and down. I can massage you and you'll go away. So this is how we deal with those kind of feelings. Now, moving on from that, let's start talking about some striving, because we do strive. People do strive in their meditation, and they strive to, let us say, Olympic champions. We strive in our meditation. We actually have gotten instruction from some places about, well, you're supposed to sit at the right time for a long time in the right place. You've got to have a meditation hall. You've got to have an altar. You've got to have a special place to sit. You got to have a special time, and you're supposed to sit there until your legs go numb, and then sit there longer until the bell rings. How many of you have done the kind of meditation where you're sitting there waiting for the bell to ring? How about girls sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring? That's what you're doing. You're waiting for the bell to ring. That's not practice. In fact, what you're saying when you're waiting for the bell to ring is that right now is not good enough. So people who are practicing meditation waiting for the bell to ring, guess what? They're not practicing meditation. They're practicing what they've always practiced. I don't like what's happening right now. I want it to change for me, rather than me changing my attitude. So anapanasati is not that kind of a practice. We don't need a special place or a special time or a special posture or anything. What we really need instead is to remember to look at what the mind is doing. And that's best done in seclusion. Because when you're around other people, there's a lot of stimulus going on. You might have a cat climbing up your leg, which is happening right now, by the way. You might have a wife climbing up your leg, which happens quite a lot. many guys. You might have a boss crawling up your leg. And so it's better to get away from it all. You give your legs and mind a rest. Get off into seclusion on your own. If you're in front of a keyboard, you've got the keyboard and your laptop climbing up your leg. So why don't you just close your eyes for a second and say, gosh, everything's okay. Everything is fine. No worries. Yeah, this program that I'm writing doesn't work right now, but I'll get around to it. But only do the work when you enjoy doing the work. When you're not enjoying doing what you're doing, stop doing it and go get yourself back into a state of enjoyment. And in fact, while you're in that working with your computer and not being satisfied with the results that you're getting, you can't find the right porn, you can't find the right reference, you can't get the code to work, you can't find the right video. Whatever is happening, that's what dries us out. And so when we go away, we got to start practicing while we're dry. And what we need to do is juicy up a little, and that's going to take a little bit. How long did it take you to get dry on the computer? And give yourself at least that much time to practice to get juicy again. Now, some people have mentioned that, well, when I start to practice this way, I abandon my formal sitting practice. And the answer to that is, that's okay. We really don't need that formal sitting practice, and it wasn't doing us any good anyway. We were doing it in order to get something, and then we're waiting for the bell to ring, not getting what we sat down to get in the first place. However, there's a middle path someplace in there, and that is to be a little bit formal with it by really saying, okay, I am going to get away from the computer, getting away from the cat crawling up the leg, getting away from the boss, getting away from the wife, and going out into seclusion, taking a walk, taking a hike, so that I can clean out my mind, get that dryness out. And if you're already used to having a formal practice where you've got a special cushion and a special altar and a special candle and a special incense can, all of that kind of stuff, it's okay to keep using it. The question is, when you're sitting there in your formal meditation, waiting for the bell to ring, why can't you ring your own bell right now? That you really don't need that formal kind of practice, especially if that formal practice is not getting you anywhere. Just before I used the example of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who won the competition for Mr. Universe bodybuilding contest, but after he got that, he recognized that if he keeps building his body, he's going to be completely muscle bound, that he can't even bend over and pick up a penny. Yeah, he can lift 400 tons, but he can't even bend over and pick up a penny. He's so muscle bound that sometimes it's a little bit better to be flabby. Nobody continues to practice and practice and practice very hard. Then, in fact, that's also part of the problem with exercise, that almost everyone starts exercise wanting to get fit. They're not satisfied with the way they are, and they keep practicing and keep practicing and keep exercising, and they still don't feel good yet. And so now they continue doing it, overdoing it, rather than finding just the right middle path about just how much exercise we need. And so we could say then that this gives us a good balance or a good definition of what is right noble effort, because most formal practices, when they're putting in too much effort and then they get bored because they're not getting the results from the too much pressure, too much practice, And so now we're sitting there waiting for the bell to ring, thinking that I've got to sit here and continue to do the meditation when in fact I'm not doing anything of any value. What I'm doing is practicing being unhappy, waiting for the bell to ring. And probably my knees hurt to boot. So you can continue your formal practice so long as you're getting some good value out of it. Does anybody have any questions about this? Go on ahead, Michael. I'm listening. Got to turn your mic on.
I don't have any questions, but thank
Oh,
you.
but your mouth moved like you did.
I was smiling.
Oh. All right. Daniel, how about you? Do you have any questions about this so far?
Yeah, the reason for my question is I read a sutta, and can you hear me all right, by the way?
Pardon? Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I read a sutta, and in there they talked about balancing what kind of qualities you are trying to develop.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when the mind is restless, and let me just put it up real quick because I saved it. Okay, when the mind is sluggish, that is the wrong time to develop sukha as a factor for awakening, unification of mind as a factor. It says concentration, but I think they're meaning unification of mind for awakening, and equanimity as a factor for awakening. So when you are sluggish, you're supposed to develop okay, anyway, it's trying to say like at some when your mind is sluggish, you're trying to develop other qualities than when you are restless, because if you try to develop pity, for example, when you're restless, then it's gonna make you like extra excited. So it's gonna make the restlessness worse. That's basically
right.
what the sutta is saying.
So one of the things then that you could do when you're restless is to take a walk. And one of the things that you could do when the mind is dull is to take a walk. Why? Because the restlessness, when you take a walk, that excess energy will become dispelled in the walking. And also, if you're dull and sleepy, guess what? When people get up, this happens, by the way, this is not necessarily a practice in and of our group and just within Buddhism, but let us say the average office worker. In the middle of the morning or in the middle of the afternoon, he gets drowsy and sleepy. The best thing for him to do is to get up and go to the water fountain and get a drink of water, because that alone will be enough to wake him back up. And he may go back to sleep when he gets back to his desk, but then he takes a little walk again. So we can also look at there's two extremes. Both of these are restlessness and drowsiness are both hindrances. And they're two extremes. Restlessness is way over here, about to jump around. And dullness over here, sleepiness, is the exact opposite of that. So what are we going to do? Let's find a middle place. Let's find a balance. So, drowsiness, you can move to wake yourself up by taking a deep breath, maybe taking a walk. And with restlessness, anxiety, you can take a deep breath and settle it down. So that the actual physical practice is not different, but the intention of it is. Okay, so I thought that you were talking about balancing the 5 qualities, which is basically mostly the Eightfold Noble Path, the 4 things that we talk about, plus adding one, which is the addition of Shraddha, to having confidence, to build up the confidence. In fact, you see that when you are gladdening the mind and gladdening your attitude, and then your feelings are not gladdened yet. Oh, poor me. I'm beginning to have unwholesome thoughts about my mind won't gladden, or my feelings don't gladden as fast as everything else does. We can actually bring in confidence. Yeah, but it will. Let me keep practicing, and everything's going to be okay. Become satisfied with the way that the feelings are now, and guess what? They'll improve. But if you're dissatisfied with them, they're going to continue on being in the state of dissatisfaction.
Would you say that wholesome thoughts, they have like a different level of quality to them? Like if you, because sometimes you're just thinking wholesome thoughts, but you don't really mean it. And sometimes, I know that's an unwholesome thought, of course, but
yeah, that's an unwholesome thought, that my wholesome thoughts, I don't mean them. Actually, this is an important point, is that the wholesome thoughts that we want to have and intend to have and keep are actually real.
yeah.
All right. An example of what would be considered a wholesome thought by some, or an affirmation, would be the teenage girl standing in front of the mirror at home saying, "I'm beautiful." And then when she goes to school and one of the girls calls her ugly, and now she doesn't feel beautiful anymore, that affirmation, it's gone. Okay? But if she stands in the mirror and says, "Oh, I don't care about how I look. I feel already okay. I'm okay. My attitude is just fine. I'm all right. It doesn't matter to me if the girls call me ugly." Then when she goes to school and the girls call her ugly, is so what? The only reason you're calling me ugly is because you're comparing yourself to me. Why don't you go compare yourself to one of the girls on the magazine of 17? Then you'll feel ugly too. Depends upon what we're it's because they feel ugly too, and in fact are acting ugly right then and there. So the ugly girl, she could be, let us say, balanced. We can use the word equanimous if we want to get down into those kind of words. We can be okay with that. But we have to practice being okay with being ugly. We have to practice with being okay with being anxious. We have to practice with being okay with being angry, even being pissed off. It's okay.
Yeah, that's where my question like originally came from about the investigation. Because if you don't do the investigation properly, then the thought is not going to be real, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. That's what the investigation really is all about, is let's see what's real. Instead of making stuff up, let's investigate to find out what's real. And the reality is that everything's okay. The reality is we live in a paradise. The only reason that this paradise that we live in, this planet Earth, is not a paradise is because we got seven who think that it's not a paradise. They go around destroying the place, trying to turn it into a paradise. They're paving a parking lot. Destroying a paradise by looking for it. Another example of that is the song "Looking for Love" in all the wrong places. love. When one is looking, you don't need to be loved. You don't have to go looking for it. You're already okay. So that would be a good lead in to the next topic that we can talk about, which is how do we deal with other people? Looking for them to love us, and they criticize us and tell us we're ugly. And then that's not very friendly. Or if we're out looking for love, we're wanting something from somebody, trying to take something from somebody, trying to make them do something that we want them to do that they're not already doing. And they're likely to resist your advances. So how do we deal with people then? Well, the first thing is to deal with them by being a friend to yourself. That's where we get it. You begin to nurture yourself. You begin to feel everything is okay. I'm already all right. Not a problem, not a worry in the world. Everything is already okay. If we can practice that way, then we can begin to deal with people as if they were okay. I've been angry, so they're angry. That's okay. Allow people to be whoever they are, even if they don't like who they are and they don't like who you are. At least you can come in and be okay and like yourself the way that you are and like them the way that they are. This is the real practice, is to get yourself into a position of being okay. Now, I use that word, possibly a one closer to Buddhism would be being satisfied. Become satisfied with who you are. Become satisfied with what you are. Become satisfied with the way you feel. Rather than Daniel saying, oh, well, I told myself to feel good, but I don't feel good yet. The answer to that is the way you feel is good enough. This is the practice to begin to feel the way things are okay. The job that needs to be done is the job of allowing things to be okay, and that's the only job that you need to do. Yes, go ahead, David.
Now, this is something that I've listened to you say in many talks, and I kind of have this conflict in my head, and hopefully you can clear it up for me here. Because I hear you often say that we got to get rid of the sewage in our mind, the unwholesome thoughts, the unwholesome feelings. We recognize, oh, that's poison. Time to get rid of that, and then we get rid of it fast as possible and as strongly as possible to return back to the wholesome. So this is confusing to me because it sounds like that's the course of action we're supposed to take, but also you're saying it's supposed to be
all
okay.
right, so let's change that just a little bit then into it's not poison, it's just not wholesome. Or another way of saying, hey, I can do better than that right now. I can see that I'm not doing what I want to do, so let's just start doing what I want to do. Let's start having the attitude that everything is okay. It's not a contradiction. You make it a contradiction when you call it poison and talk about it being bad. And because my thoughts are bad, therefore I'm bad. And the fact is that no, you're not bad. You're okay.
Yeah.
Why are you okay?
I think I get it.
Because you have the opportunity to change those thoughts. Go ahead.
Yes, exactly. Is that I am okay enough to change the thoughts. I'm okay enough to not be a victim to whatever it is that I'm suffering from. I have realized I have enough sati to say, hold on, I can be okay enough to change this unwholesome state of being into a more wholesome state of being. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, I can gladden the mind. I can brighten the mind. I can turn it out of being a victim to whatever you're victimized with, the poison. Because when the victim is dealing with poison, that means he's been poisoned. He is the poison now.
Mhm.
And the right attitude then is going to be saying, oh, there's nothing to that poison.
Yeah.
Just throw it out.
Yeah, it doesn't have any power over me.
It's got no power over us.
Okay, cleared up for me.
All right. So going back to the point about how then to deal with friendship, let me introduce a little bit of mathematics. You know, almost all mathematics is based upon two things. One is a formula, and the other one is an equation. Like, for instance, 1 plus 1 equals 2, right? Very basic mathematics starts with very basic arithmetic, and we always have this equal sign. That's what they start with. So a quadratic equation, everything is based upon that equal sign. That's how we can determine what the factors are, what the x square is, and what the x is, because everything is balanced on both sides. And yet, when we get into high school algebra, maybe the second or the third semester of algebra, they bring in inequalities, like greater than, equal to, less than, etc., like that. But those greater than, less than qualities in mathematics gets you into high school before you get it. But we get to that greater than, equal to, and less than in diapers for the whole world. We can look and see that mommy's a great big greater than we are, and I'm a whole lot less than they are. And so we see the world in greater than and less thans, and then we would start to relate to other people in greater thans and less thans. And we can't then just go and say that, well, everybody is equal, because that's still a comparison. That in fact, the greater than and less than and equal tos have to do with the criteria that we choose. And comparing ourselves with others, by the way, the Pali term for this is mana, and it is often translated as conceit. But a better word to use for the translation of mana is comparison, competition even, that we compete with one another to determine whether we're greater than, equal to, or less than. Who wins, who loses. And this doesn't work very well with friendship. An example of that would be a teacher and a student. The teacher is greater than the student in a particular topic. But let's say that the teacher is an old man who's teaching mathematics, and after the class, the kid goes to the football practice. Well, the old math teacher, he can't compete with football. So now the kid is greater than the teacher. So what I'm getting at is that when we compare ourselves with others, we automatically choose a set of criteria to select. You can't do the whole show. It's not possible. So we will select based upon our comparisons as to who's going to win and who's going to lose. Now, jealousy and other things like that, if the criteria that we select is guaranteed that we're going to lose this competition. So let's look at it from this perspective, that friends do not compare. There is no such thing as less than, no such thing as greater than, and no such thing as equal. All right, so we can take that. You know what the equal sign looks like in the equation. You know what the greater sign looks like? Angle brackets. You know what the less sign looks like? Let's remove that and put a better symbol in place. How about the heart symbol? Let's stop comparison. Let's stop making this a mathematical equation of who's good and who's bad and who's better and who's less and all of this. And this is the way that we deal with friends, is that we're not comparing each other. We're just enjoying each other's company. This is the most important thing for friendship, and this is one of the reasons why the Buddha built up the Sangha in the first place. He could have taught individual people. He could have done it that way. Everybody could have been a householder, but he chose to create the Sangha so that the monks then could come and live with each other and deal with each other. The story is, in fact, dealing with each other like milk and water. That milk and water will easily mix together. Oil and water, not so much. And yet most of our relationships out there in the world are oil and water, that you have to, in fact, shake stuff up in order to get them to blend. You have to have some sort of conflict with resolution, as opposed to allowing things just to blend together, milk and water. No up, no down, no better than, no greater than, no equal tos, no equations, in fact, at all. Just blending together, milk and water. This is the way that we deal with friends. Now, how we do that in operation is on the Sangha. Go ahead, David. Ask your question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about compliments, because it's about then disparaging comments. Those are going to be the negative side. But what about compliments? Because that's somebody could be a great cook and they're a better cook than me, and so or maybe they're even an equal cook to me and I'm a great cook, but then I'm still doing this superiority inferiority complex, and then I'm giving them that compliment. What about the role of compliments? How should we play with that?
Wonderful, because that's in fact your giving. Have you ever heard of Jesus, his golden rule of do unto others the way that you want to be done unto? Don't you like compliments? So give your friends compliments. Yeah, that's great. Glad to see you. Oh, what you cooked was really good. Thank you. Yes, compliments. Compliment each other. Not in order to gain something, but in fact, that's something that's always quite well known, as the employee comes into the boss's office and butters up the boss so he can ask for a raise or something. Guess what? Those are artificial and everybody knows it. But natural compliments. Here's one of the best compliments that you can give somebody, is enjoying being with them. Okay, you have heard that emulation is the most sincere form of flattery. Okay, that you want to be like somebody, and that's a kind of compliment. But we don't need to give the kind of compliments by being like somebody. You can just give the compliment of enjoying being there with them. That you can share your joy. When you're joyful, it's infectious. Just, you've heard me say many times, and in the country, and in the community, you'll hear misery loves company. When somebody's miserable, they want you to be miserable too, to be just like them. Well, that's not much friendship. So if somebody's miserable and you come to them with your joy, initially they're not going to like it, David. Initially they're dry, and here you come all juicied up, and they're going to resist it for a little bit. But if you stay juicy, they'll start taking in some of the juice also. The cure for misery is to be around happy people.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I used to be one of those people who would be just from meeting someone who was very joyful or had a very positive, chipper attitude. I'd just be like, "What is wrong with you? Why are you not jaded like me? Why do you have this happiness?" And I'm jealous. That's what it is. I'm jealous that they have a kind of happiness that I don't have. And I don't know how to get it. And it seems impossible. And I'm upset that they have it and I don't. And so I'm going to whine about it.
Right. Jealousy, in fact, is very, very, very common. In fact, jealousy is exactly what we were talking about a few moments ago, of this manna of comparing ourselves with others, finding ourselves less than, and not liking it. But we set that up anyway. Why does the student have to be jealous of the math teacher about the mathematics when he can play football? All right, and this happens in relationships a lot. That when a man loves a woman and he has so much love for her he can't do without her, then that means then that he's going to be on guard for anybody who comes around that she might look at, and he's going to be jealous. He's going to feel jealousy. He may not look like he acts like jealousy, but it still is clear to everybody else. And nobody likes people who are jealous. In fact, bullies are jealous. That's why they bully other people, is because they're jealous. And one of the reasons why divorce happens is because of jealousy. In fact, there's a song. I remember getting into trouble by singing this song, so be careful with it. But the song is, if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, don't make a pretty woman your wife. It's my personal point of view. Don't let a pretty girl marry you. Why? Because girls who want to be pretty, they want to be attractive. They don't want to just be attractive to one man. They want to be attractive to everybody. And so if you marry a beautiful girl, you're automatically going to be jealous because she's out there being attracted to and attracting other men. This is one of the biggest problems with our society is that women are supposed to be beautiful. They're supposed to be attractive. They're supposed to be out there looking for a man. And when they get in the habit of being beautiful, they become attractive to every man. And so you can see a man and his girlfriend walking down the street and another girl passes by. He's going to give her a glance, and then the wife is going to get jealous immediately. This jealousy stuff is built right into our society based upon the fact of how we're supposed to look determines about who we are. That in fact, if you look at it this way, some of the most ugly, physically unattractive people in the world are the ones who are the wisest. Because they're not dealing in that surface level stuff anymore. The examples of that would be Socrates or Diogenes. I imagine that the Buddha himself, they said that he was radiant, he was beautiful, but it was only because of his complexion. He wasn't grumpy at all. So in that kind of realm, he was beautiful, but that was just that. He wasn't wearing makeup. He didn't wear a fancy robe. In fact, he dressed in rags. So let's kind of look at it from the perspective of friendship is not about appearances at all. And when we give up on the appearances and start looking at someone with the eye of everything is okay, then they'll begin to feel okay. that in fact one of the best signs of a good marriage, a good relationship, is after the marriage, after the people get married, the woman doesn't wear makeup anymore. She doesn't need it anymore. She's gotten what she was out shopping for. She got her man. And if she continues to wear makeup, why? Why is she wearing makeup? She's still wanting to be attractive. So the same thing, by the way, with guys. I'm not being chauvinist or anything, but guys do that too. Young men will get all body built up and they'll have fancy clothes and all of this kind of stuff. And if they get married, the best thing, an example then would be, is to start becoming a slouch. Start enjoying your life instead of dressing to kill. So if you want to make friends, go make friends with ugly, sloppy people. They won't compete with you. So does anybody have any further questions about any of this? We've covered 3 topics. We've covered wet and dry. We've covered formal practice and why we don't have to bother with formal practice. We just need to practice often. But in fact, let me repeat a point, and that is that Anapanasati is best done about 6 times a day. It'll really start to kick in if you intentionally practice about 6 times a day. Sitting for 1 hour is almost a waste of 50 minutes. But if we practice 10 minutes for 6 times a day, it will begin to affect the mind. Thomas, you got your hand up.
Yeah, just coming back to this, the point you made earlier about striving and avoiding striving. If we were to look at like a sports analogy, like I love playing tennis, and a lot of people I play against, and myself included, so you have more fun when you're competing in a game. Like some people see it that way, others don't, but many people do. So is there any middle ground here with setting goals where you can make it fun and hold it lightly, set the intention to, sit 6 times a day for 10 minutes, and as long as you're not clinging to a future outcome, then it can be a way of motivating yourself to really instill that habit. Is there any middle ground at all? Is there a middle path?
Yes, the middle ground would be, and I'll use tennis as an example, let your friend win. If he wants to win because he's playing the game and he's counting the points, love this and love that, give him the love by letting him win. This is, in fact, is well known. An example would be, let us say that you have a grand chess master, someone who has really played. Maybe he is not a grand chess master. Maybe he was just on the chess team in college. And now he's got a daughter, and he's going to teach her how to play chess. Obviously, she doesn't know how. Obviously, he can win every game. Obviously, she doesn't even know how to move the pieces yet, never mind the strategy. And he will teach her strategy, but he still has to teach her the strategy and still let her win the game, because if the child loses every chess game they ever play, guess what? They're not going to play chess. So let your friends play. Let them win. But in fact, if they can play you and play a very hard game, the very enjoyment and getting a whole lot of the game, a whole lot of enjoyment out of the game, and they still win, you'll be their favorite person to play tennis with. Even though they know that you're letting them win, you let them win anyway, because you're not in the competition. Even if you're a grand master, even if you just came off the set at Wimbledon, and now you're playing a game at the clubhouse with a friend, The Wimbledon champion should just let the other person win the game. That's what friendship is all about. They're the one who wants to win. You don't care about winning. You care about enjoying playing the game. So in chess, one of the ways that a grandmaster can teach a student how to play is by making a wrong move intentionally to let the student see how that was set up so that the teacher then can teach that to the student. It's easier to learn from somebody else's mistakes than it is to learn from your own, because we don't like making mistakes. Everybody doesn't like making mistakes. That's why it's better not to call them mistakes, especially in the practice of anapanasati. Having an unwholesome thought is not a mistake. It's a learning experience. It's a learning experience. Aha, I see that. So that's the way to play chess, is to let the other person win. You're there to enjoy the game, not to win. You make it tough on them so that they have to squeak it out.
Well, the irony is I'll probably end up winning if I take that mindset.
Mm-hmm. Right, with that mindset, then you always win. Even though they win the game, you won the life. All right, so today, instead of ending the way that we normally do, I would like to end this with a bit of guided practice. Is that okay? David, you've got your hand up. You have a last question?
I did, and perhaps it will link right into your guided meditation. It is just a quick question about the last member of the Eightfold Noble Path, which is typically, I believe, translated as right concentration.
No, it's not typically, well, it's typically translated as right concentration, but really the area, Sama area samadhi, actually is better translated as right organization of mind, right unification of mind. And concentration has the quality of throwing out superfluous stuff.
Right. And so
Okay.
what I wanted to ask you was, based off of hearing how you define it, my consideration is just, could we call it, or just for me thinking about it, but could we call it really right satisfaction? Because aren't we cultivating a certain state of satisfaction, a wholesome satisfaction within ourselves that we want to initiate and sustain? And isn't that the whole point?
Yes, I would say that would be correct. That would be correct. Right unification of mind is when everything is in balance, everything is okay.
Cool. That's it. Right satisfaction. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. As opposed to having a bunch of rules that you're supposed to follow and you don't want to follow them. That's causing conflict within one's own mind. Oh, you ought to go exercise, and then you don't. Oh, you ought to go on a diet, and then you're on a diet for a day. You're on a diet until you open the refrigerator door, and then out goes the diet. And then 10 minutes later, why weren't you on a diet? You should not have eaten that donut. Okay, so this is all the conflicts of the mind, and those are just two small examples. We do that all the time, of making a rule about what we should do, and then we don't want to do it. Or if we do it, then we compare, well, it wasn't good enough. Or we do it, wow, I'm so happy that I did it, and that happiness doesn't last because now you're going to go look for some other comparison. All right, so you guys can, in fact, keep your eyes open or closed, doesn't matter, but we're going to start with just taking a long, deep in-breath, followed by a long, relaxing out-breath. Always a good place to get started. And then under the concept of gladdening the mind or brightening the mind, the kind of thoughts that we're going to have are going to be happy, intentional, wholesome thoughts. So we can start out with, everything is okay. Everything is fine. Not a worry in the world. No place to go and nothing to do. Wow, isn't that nice? The job that needs to be done is to just relax with wholesome thoughts. And we can do that job. We're very good at it. We've done it many times. And then we take another deep breath, long breath. Everything is okay. And as we breathe out, we can use the word relax. Oh, it feels good to relax. Everything's okay. Not a worry in the world. All is well. This Anapanasati stuff is easy. Wow, I like it. It's good stuff. I feel good when I'm practicing. Feel good enough. Everything is okay. Everything is fine. And then sometimes the mind will wander away. Never mind. Start again. Come back. Come back. Take another deep, long in-breath and another sigh. Wow, I was glad to come back and to just be okay. Not a worry in the world. Nothing dangerous. No problems to solve. Isn't that nice to have done the job so that the job is done now? No problems, no worries, no jobs to do. You can just sit here and feel nice. Safe, secure, and comfortable leads one to satisfaction. We can feel satisfied. Take another deep breath. Feels so good to be satisfied. And then on the out breath, just let it all go. The air we breathe is nurturing. It's life-giving. You can think of it as nature itself. You breathe in nature, and then you give it all back on the out breath. You breathe in the very best there is, full of life, and then we breathe out, throw out all of the problems. Everything is okay. And as we breathe in and we breathe out, we relax, we go into a really deeper state of relaxation. Imagine that you're going down, down, down in an elevator, and every in-breath that you take and every out-breath that you take, you go deeper and deeper into relaxation. Down, down, oh, so nice. Down to a place where there's no problems, no worries. Everything is kind of a blue color, very cool. Imagine that you're in a basement or maybe even an ice cave to where everything is just so cool, so relaxing. And all the problems of the world are way far away up on the surface. We're way down here in the deep, dark, beautiful, comfortable, not much of anything. Oh, it's so nice. And if the mind wanders away, never mind. Just start again. Come back to that beautiful state where nothing is happening. All the jobs have been done. No worries, no flurries. Everything is okay. These deep, long breaths are life-giving, energizing. You feel good. And so at the end of our little time, we can come back, open the eyes, come back to reality, full of vim, vigor, vitality. We've got all the energy we need to do nothing at all. Everything is okay. Everything is beautiful. And so I'm going to count 3 now, and as we count 3, we're going to open our eyes, take a deep breath, and put a great big smile on. Wow, it's been so nice to have nothing to do and no place to go. 1, wow, it feels so good. 2, everything is okay. 3, I feel good. I feel good. How about you, Dhammarato? You feel good?
Yes, I do. Yes.
How about you, Alexander? You feel good?
Yes,
Good to see you. I'm so happy to see you. Robert, you
very
just
happy to
joined
see
us.
you.
Do you feel good?
Moo.
Moo. He's being a cow today.
Moo, moo, moo. Feeling good.
How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I feel nice.
Solid. Thomas, do you have anything to say?
Everything's good for me.
Does anybody have any remarks? What did you experience? Adrian, what do you have to say? What happened?
I feel good. Yeah, good.
Okay, well, you can use this example. And in fact, you can use this video. You can reverse it. You can watch it again. We might, in fact, Michael, want to cut this part of the video out and make it a separate one, just as a small guided meditation. Didn't last long, about 10 minutes. If you do this 10 minute, you do this 6 times a day, your whole life will change. You feel right now the way that you feel this way all the time. Everything is okay. Everything is fine. You got to practice. So, does anybody have any more comments? guess you're all so mellow right now that you don't want to talk. All right, well, let's finish now. You go hang on to what we've just been doing. You go practice this. You go feel good.
Thank you.
If the mind wanders away, never mind. Just come back and just get relaxed again. We'll see you.
Have a great night, everyone, or morning.
Don't worry, be happy.